Hello, my name's Carter Trout. Today I'm going to be covering the MetaBank 2022 data breach for my midterm presentation. Getting started, we're going to take a look at the contents of this presentation. We're first going to be taking a look at the attack vector or path, including the technical details of the overall event, the data that was compromised during this event, the impact that this had on the company and customers of this surrounding this event, as well as the response made by the company and the overall timeline of the incident. First, getting started, we'll take a look at Medibank as a company. Medibank is a major Australian health insurance firm, and they have millions of customers. And with this, they have stored lots of sensitive customer information, specific sensitive health information. And this allowed them to be looked at as a high value target for cybercrime and criminals. Next, taking a look at the attack vector or path that was taken. This happened when the credentials were stolen from a employee's personal device through malware. So this first raised the question on whether malware, antivirus, or anti-malware software was even installed on the system. Uh, and the credentials were stored on the device when the browser synced with the personal drive, embedding the credentials within the employee's computer. When these credentials were tested, it granted them VPN access as there was no multi-factor authentication that was set up. And security alerts went off, but they went unnoticed or unrecognized and were basically brushed off to the side, allowing the attacker to stay into the system for a long time. Next, taking a look at the technical details. Of course, the database access, VPN and email servers were accessed when the credentials were tested, and this gave the attackers a broad visibility over the overall customer data that was within their system. The data exfiltration over time, the data was actually taken out over a period of time. Rather than being taken out all at once. So this allowed them to basically go unnoticed, and overall 520 gigabytes or around that was extracted. Next, weak monitoring. Like I said earlier, alerts were discovered later on, but they basically went unnoticed at the time, allowing the attacker to stay in the system for up to nearly 2 months. And of course, this whole time he's just extracting data. And lastly, poor access controls. Like I said, there was no MFA installed, and the accounts had way too much privilege than they should have than necessary. There was no zero trust architecture installed, so these random credentials were able to be given all this access to all this information. So when granted by attackers with no MFA, it allowed them to basically have free will over the system. Next, we'll take a look at data compromised. Of course, personal information such as first name, last name, date of birth, personal addresses. This also includes Medicare numbers, health records, and health claims. So this can include things such as cancer or other medical events that have happened. And lastly, sensitive procedures such as surgeries. Any surgeries can include events such as abortions that have been made. So this can be a major problem when you introduce the fact that attackers now have this data, which can lead to large amounts of blackmail and strain on the customer, as now they have this threat to their personal lives out in the world. Next, we'll take a look at the impact. Of course, it had a large financial impact, millions of dollars costed to MetaBank. Next, the reputation, a big loss to customer trust, and this led to a lot of customers leaving their business, which had a major impact on their financial statements, uh, and they went to other businesses. Legal, there was a lot of investigations, which led to MetaBank possibly having to hire a lot of lawyers. And of course, the human impact. There's emotional distress, which can lead to lawsuits due to this information being leaked, as customers can have major issues with this, of course. Next, we'll take a look at the risk management failures. All this we've already covered. Of course, possibly having either weak or no antivirus software at all. Of course, no MFA, weak identity or access management. Of course, poor monitor and just overall slow detection, as the attacker was able to stay in the system for up to 2 months, as we stated. Next, we'll take a look at the threat landscape at the time in 2022. Of course, healthcare was and still is a high value target. And at the time, data extortation trends were occurring, as well as a rise in ransomware attacks. And according to some research I looked at, valid credentials was a high level impact at the time, as people were looking for these credentials to then use and test to try to get into these systems. So of course, it was one of the first things they looked at when they were granted access to that employee's personal device. Next, we'll take a look at the response and compliance from MetaBank. MetaBank at the time actually refused to pay the ransom, which of course led to a big outrage from the customers, especially those who don't fully understand the cyber world, as that means that their data was basically lost forever and was being sold and distributed out in the real world. There was, of course, communication was trying to be made and support was trying to be offered, but there wasn't much they could do after that as the data was lost. As far as the legal aspect and compliance aspect, there's regulatory investigations and potential privacy law violations, which of course leads to that financial impact. And light mitigation was tried to be implemented, of course, MFA implementation and improved monitoring, but by that time it was already too late. They should have been implemented beforehand, before this event even occurred. Taking a quick look at the timeline of the event, I'm kind of going to just go through here. Of course, first it started when these credentials were synced. Then they were retrieved from an attacker to an attacker via malware. Next, they tested the stolen credentials. Then they gained access to the VPN and installed a malicious script to basically go in and extract all this data. Security alerts were triggered, and they just weren't looked at. And attackers were able to steal up to 120 gigabytes of data, and these alerts were still being ignored. Finally, when they finally realized what was going on, they began investigating, and they identified that there was a large data exfiltration, and the attacker actually reached out to them to confirm it and submit proof, as well as ask for a ransom. When the ransom was denied, this then led to the data being released on the dark webs, being sold, and being distributed. In conclusion, it was a major healthcare data breach, and it was a major event in total. It was identity-based attack with the stolen credentials, and it was a high impact due to the sensitive data of these customers that was being released. It could have been preventable through just having simple multi-factor authentication set up, having stronger identity and access controls, having continuous monitoring and faster detection on these types of events, and of course, limiting access of these accounts to sensitive data. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.